Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Monday, November 25th, 2024. Um, Clerk McCurry, please call the roll.
Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Patterson, Councilor Piazza, Councilor Talley, and Councilor Sheffield are present.
Okay, thank you. New business or referrals, Groton Utilities Cost of Service Study presentation with Mark Beauchamp. Who's going to kick this off? Aaron, is that you? Okay. Share your microphones on. Okay.
Good evening. I think you guys are fairly familiar with Utility Financial Solutions. We've been utilizing them for our cost of service studies for both operating companies and all three services. This is for our wastewater cost of service study. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mark Beauchamp.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for the opportunity to work on this study and to present the result. This study's the wastewater department's cost of service study has gone through a lot of itinerations. There's been a lot of changes in the wastewater department. A lot of it was attributed to inflation, the increase in capital costs, as well as the increase in chemical costs and labor. And as a result, we needed to revise and update the long-term financial projection as well as the cost of service study. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And the purpose of this study is to review the results of the financial modeling as well as the cost of service study and the rate design itself and how we took the rate design and move different customer classes and types closer to the cost of service results. What you're going to see as I go through this is about a 7.3% rate adjustment each year for the next 3 years in wastewater. However, because of the way we're structuring the rates, we're putting in what's called an inclining block rate structure, which is more cost-based. And what inclining block rate structure is the first block of water consumption or wastewater is priced at a lower rate than the excess amount. And the reason it's cost-based is that first amount of water that's discharged for domestic use is very consistent throughout the year, but the excess amount, the amount above that base amount, is used inconsistently. And so what we did is we put in a rate structure that's more cost-based. And by doing that, even though there's a 7.3% overall adjustment, residentials, for example, are going to see something less than 5% each year. It's about $1.80 a month on their wastewater bills. But I'll go through the results at the end of this presentation. This is the long-term assumptions used to build the long-term financial model. And the key thing that's driving a lot of our recommendations is, the capital improvement plan. We're projecting that there's going to be major treatment plant capital needs around the year 2030, 2031. And our cash balances right now cannot support the rates as it currently set. And we want to get the utility financially stable and prepared for these major capital improvements that are projected to occur in about 5 years. So right now, the way the projection looks is without any rate adjustments. The key operating characteristic, of course, is cash balances. And we identified that the utility needs to maintain at a minimum of around $2 million in cash. In other words, we want to see your cash reserves above that $2 million so that you can pay your bills in a timely fashion. And your cash reserves are projected in 2025 to fall to about 1.5 million without any rate relief, then going down to about 240,000 and then going negative in 2026. 7. In addition to that, we won't be funding the system enough to even pay for our debt service payments. And that can cause issues in the future when it goes to issue any additional debt for wastewater. So we're trying to get the cash reserves back up to appropriate levels, and of course getting enough cash being generated to be able to pay back any existing debt or future debt. So what we propose is a series of 3 years worth of rate adjustments. Of course, this is a longer term projection that runs out 10 years, but we're asking for rate approval for the next 3 years at about 7.3% each year. And by doing that, you see our cash balances, we're still falling below our $2 million cash reserve target, or minimum. But we're trying to move the utility toward more financial stability, but at the same time balancing the potential rate impacts on customers. So rather than having a large, like 20% rate increase, we're trying to structure it over the next 3 years. So the cost of service results, what that showed was, if you look at like residentials, they showed the need for a 6.9% adjustment here. And we compare that to where the cost of service study said the increase for 2025 should be, which the cost of service study identified 12.4, but we're only requesting a 7.3. So what that indicates to us when it comes to like smaller residential accounts is that we should not give them as big of an increase as we should some of the larger meters. Like your larger rate class shows the need for about a 20% rate adjustment. And so this rate structure that we're putting in place is moving us closer to these cost of service results. In addition, the fixed monthly charge, which is part of the overall revenue requirements, you're currently charging a fixed meter charge of $11.65. The cost of service study identified should be around $15. And most all of your meter charges are, at least the major ones of major classes, your current rates, like for the small customers and the large customers, are below the cost of service requirements. And because of that, the volumetric charge, which is currently $5.63, actually shows a slight decrease, even though overall we're showing the need for a 7.3% rate adjustment. The volumetric charge in total actually shows it should go lower. So what we did is we proposed a rate design that is what we call an inclining block, which is becoming more the standard in the industry. Because of what I said earlier, that first block of usage is more consistently used throughout the year than the outer block or the excess. So it costs more to provide that excess amount of water, in this case treatment, than it does that base amount. So what we're proposing is the first 300 cubic feet, your current rate of 5.63 cents, that remains at 5.63 cents. Anything in excess of 300 cubic feet would see an increase from 5.63 to about 6 cents per CCF. And what this does with a structure like this, it benefits smaller users. And from a cost of service standpoint, that is the way, perspective, it shows that those rates should see less of an increase overall to meet their cost of service requirements, where the larger users should see bigger increases. Now with the meter charge, we're proposing to increase the meter charge for the residential $1 each year, from $11.65 up to $14.65. And we're proposing some meter charges like these to remain the same because they're actually, the rates you're currently charging are slightly higher than what the cost of service study said. And the ones that needed adjustments, we proposed adjustments for. Like this one's going from an increase of around $30 each year in the monthly customer charge. And again, increases in the large meter charge sizes. So when we looked at the impacts on residential, the typical 5/8" meter. Now, your average residential usage or discharge in wastewater is about 445 cubic feet a month on average. But we're just for comparative purposes, we're assuming it to be 500. So from a residential standpoint, the average residential customer would see an increase of about $1.80 per month in each of the increases or adjustments. Where the larger users would see something higher than that. Like at 700 cubic feet, they'd see an increase of about 250 to 275. When we look at the overall impact by different meter sizes, the 5/8" meter, which is primarily residential, is going to see about 4.8. When we get to the larger meters, like the 10" and above, they're going to see about 9% annual adjustments. And again, that's consistent with the cost of service results that show that those larger meters needed almost a 20% adjustment, where the 5/8" meter only needed about a 6.9. The other change that we're proposing is a lot of customers, of course, they use substantial amounts of water, but some of them use it for sprinkling or use it for cooling process in their operations. And they have what we call deduct meters. And those deduct meters measure the amount of water that's going into areas that won't be flowing into the sanitary sewer system. And, so what we're proposing is that we continue with that process. However, rather than giving them the higher block, if you look at this, rather than giving them the credit at 6.01 cents, we give them the credit back at 5.63 cents. So in other words, they're not going to get the excess rate on that deduct meter. They're going to get the lower block 1 rate. And by doing that, that makes up for us not charging the appropriate fixed monthly customer charge for these larger customers for that infrastructure being readily available to serve them each month, that sizing that we need to maintain to handle that potential flow. So with that, is there any questions, concerns, or issues on what I just went through?
Councilor Sheffield, do you have a question?
Yeah, Mark, we factored in, I guess, assuming inflation's going to decrease and kind of stay steady. What if that isn't the case? If, God forbid, the economy changes after, new administration takes over, things change up, how would that affect us financially as far as if inflation goes up? Will corresponding rates have to increase even more based on these projections?
Probably what would occur, and of course I'm speculating, but there's a certain amount of, you can absorb a little bit more inflation than the 3% that we're projecting. But realistically, most likely what would occur, because we don't necessarily want to come back to council unless it's absolutely critical to request an additional rate adjustment, most likely it would mean that the capital improvement program would get pushed back into future years, which of course is not desirable either. But you know, that is one of the alternatives that we may have to explore if that were to occur.
Okay, Deputy
Thank-
Mayor Depot?
Thank you, Mayor. So looking at this, the monthly service charge list for what's proposed. So most residential houses have the 5/8 meter. Is that correct? And how many have the largest meter? Do we know about?
Residential customers?
No, just customers in general.
So the largest is going to be mostly our industrial class. For wastewater, we only have 2 industrial customers.
Okay. So just doing a little bit of math of the percentage change for the monthly service charge, we are increasing the 5/8 meter service charge over 3 years more than 25%. But if I take, for example, the 3-inch meter, that's only going up 4.5% over 3 years. And the 10-inch and the 18-inch are going up 16.2% over 3 years. Did we consider maybe closing the gap between those a little bit? I know that most of our customers are 5/8, so that's going to make the biggest difference. And I'm sure there's lots of math behind the scenes. But to me, 4.5% increase for the 3-inch meter, which I'm sure there aren't that many customers with that size meter, but that just seems like a big gap to me in percentage. I know numbers wise, $1 per year doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're looking at the percentages, to me, it seems like maybe we could close that gap a little bit and not have to charge such a big percentage for most of our customers.
That's a great question, and when you look at this chart, this is all in. In other words, what you see here for increases, like this dollar, for example, that's an all-in increase. That includes the customer charge and the volumetric rate. And because the residentials in the volumetric side they use on average about 445 cubic feet. So almost all of their usage is not going to see an increase. And because of that, the average customer, which is really closer to 450, is going to see about $1.60 a month in total, or about a 4.8% adjustment. So what you're looking at is just an individual component of their total bill. So we're increasing, the facilities charge roughly 8% a year, but the volumetric charge we're holding more stable. Does that make sense? So overall, they'll see a 4.8.
Okay, and then looking on the next slide, so that's what's shown there is the,
Yes.
So,
You don't have anybody with a 3-inch meter, but if you have a 2-inch meter, even though we're not adjusting the customer charge percentage-wise as much, they're still seeing a larger overall rate adjustment because of what we're doing with the volumetric rate.
okay. And what kind of customer uses a 2-inch or a 4-inch meter?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Your commercial class, so your small, medium businesses.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to piggyback off of Deputy Mayor Depot. I'm in agreement with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I heard earlier the average was 700. But when we look at the chart that's highlighted, we go back to, where's my little chart here? What is it, 500 that's highlighted? So just clarify with me, so you're saying it's $1 extra a month, but then we have, then I heard right now fix is $11.65, we're going to 15, that's for residential. Is that correct?
$11.65 to $14.65, yes.
Over 3 years.
Fixed over 3 years. Yes.
So you're saying $1 per year more?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's more for residential.
Yes, it's just the residential.
Do we have what commercial would be each year?
Yeah, I don't have it in this type of chart, you have to kind of look at it here. So, like, commercial is going to be typically, 1.5 or above. So some of these, like you see, the 1.5, we're not changing the customer charge, because your current rate of $47 is actually higher than the cost of service study. But when you get to other ones, such as the 4-inch meter, the cost of service study says it's $436, you're charging $325. So we're increasing that around $20 a month. The same thing with the 6-inch meters, we're increasing it $30 a month. And then the 8-inch meter, we're moving it up from $11.27 to $13.10. The cost of service study said it should be $1,600. So what we're trying to do is move toward cost of service. And we try to do that slowly over time. And the reason is because we don't want to adversely impact substantially any customers.
Right, so I'm looking at, so when you talk about the 1.5-inch meter, and we say, it was stated that's mostly commercial, and you say you didn't want to raise it because of the rate that they're paying now, but are they not also using more water than a residential person is?
Yes, that's great. And so what they're going to see is when you look at this rate, because they're going to use more than 300 CF,
Mm-hmm,
they might use 2,000 or more.
mm-hmm.
They're going to see the 6.01 affecting their volumetric rate more than what the residentials will see. In other words, a higher percentage of their usage will be at a higher rate than like a residential.
Okay, then clarify to me that you had said that we're not going to put them at the block 2, we're going to put them back to the block 1. Who was that you said was going to be bounced back to block 1?
Well, that is on what we call the deduct meter. Because for billing wastewater, we use water meters,
Mm-hmm.
but some of that water consumption is used for sprinkling or used for cooling, if it's a business. And so we have a meter that records the amount of water that's used for sprinkling. And that amount is deducted from the water meter usage to try to estimate how much is actually getting discharged into the sewer system. That we're only crediting back to customers at the 5.63. Currently, we're crediting them at 5.63 also. But because we have a 2-block rate, the cost of service identified it was more appropriate to credit them at the block 1 amount. So by doing that, that's going to increase your annual revenues by about $100,000 a year, and most of that's going to be on the large meters.
So would it be beneficial for residentials also to get a deduct meter? Like I've used one temporarily, have very definitely looked into having a permanent one put on, because I have a pool, I have a garden, so forth and so on. So it does benefit, so it would be highly advantageous for residentials also to get a deduct meter, correct?
It is, but those metering, it can cost a fair amount of money to install the meters. It can cost a residential home $500 to $800 to put a meter in. So that can purchase a lot of water and wastewater.
Well, I got a lower price, but I think over the year it actually benefits when I use it temporarily, especially if you do have a pool or if you do use a lot of water, especially we have a dry season and we use a lot of water. And so this is saying 300 CF. We said average was 700. So where is 300 and 700 coming from? So are we saying residential average is 300 or is it 700? Because I believe mine is much higher than 300.
It's neither actually. The actual average of a 5/8-inch meter is 445 cubic feet. So it's neither example purposes, I use 500, but it's really 445.
That's for average for a residential person with 5/8.
Correct. Yes, that's the average consumption for a 5/8 inch meter, which is predominantly residential.
Right, and I understand you have to take averages, but do you have a high side for residential by chance? And would their rates still fall the same? If somebody averaged, let's say somebody averaged 650, are they gonna get the same rate?
Yes, but they're gonna be hitting right here, so they'd see an increase of about 250 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason their increase is greater is partially driven because they're gonna have more usage at that higher blocked rate.
And that's why I say over time, a deduct meter for residentials, I think it should be broadcasted and definitely put out there more to residents. I had just happened to stumble on it a while back, because I think it's very advantageous. And I think over 3 years to have a deduct meter, let's say if you place one in this year in the spring, and then over 3 years, it definitely would be beneficial, put you in the positive than it would in the negative. If you had if the resident had a cash reserve themselves and did a deduct meter, over time, they're probably gonna be ahead instead of behind. Just,
So you're probably correct. Yes.
thank you.
Well, let me address the
They do a lot of
deduct.
lawn sprinkling.
Not everybody's gonna need a deduct meter, right? So people that have gardens, they may benefit from a deduct meter. People that have pools may benefit. But if you're just operating day to day and you're not watering your yard or watering your garden or washing your vehicles a lot, then you might not necessarily benefit from a deduct meter. So each individual is gonna have to, do their own scenario and decide what they wanna do.
Correct, and
And
so what I'm just saying, I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying those who use a fair amount of water, because statistically, these are just average, average, average. So somewhere along the line, it does fall on somebody else's shoulders. I know we can't go to each individual resident, but to me, when I'm looking at this, because I am a resident of the city of Groton, and when I look at this and looked at the past when I've been on council, it seems to fall back onto the resident. I understand chemicals are higher, inflation is higher, everything's costing more and more and more, but then I work with a lot of people that are like pinching, and usually in the negative after every paycheck, so a dollar something even through the years is just something else to me, that they have to pay.
You are correct.
Especially since we have Section 8 housing also, well, their water's paid for, I believe, right? So those who are just above and just slightly over middle class, I feel like get hit quite a bit, so.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Depot?
Just to touch on what Councilor Piazza said, I believe that customer service, if you call, will help you calculate whether or not a deduct meter is worth it over time for you. I think that came up last time, when we originally made this switch. I think we discussed that with Tina Daniels, that her office would be willing to help anyone. So if someone has a question of whether or not a deduct meter would be worth it, customer service can help them do the math on that, and look at their bills for them and go over it. Do we have any statistics on what other utilities are doing for rate increases for sewer?
Well, so we do kind of a rate survey, and in the case of wastewater, there's one utility kind of to the west of us that is, from a methodology standpoint, very closely aligned with us. We will be 47% below them, even after this.
Where do we fall in the bigger scheme? I know usually
It's tough because some towns have it under the tax scrolls.
right.
Some actually subsidized by a tax. So it's hard to gauge with other communities just because they're not structured the same.
Do we know if the town of Groton is increasing their sewer rates? They do it in taxes, correct? Or
Well,
in
they have it
a
both.
quarterly, or
So
they do
it's-
something funky?
Some is under the tax, but then they also do have a user fee as well. So that's why it becomes a little bit difficult to try and compare.
And can you remind me when the last cost of service study for the sewer was done?
3 years.
3 years? That's what I thought.
Yeah, in general, we go on 3-year cycles.
And when we, I don't know, obviously if you don't have it with you, you're not gonna remember, but when we did the cost of service 3 years ago, what was the prediction for this year's increase?
I don't have
It was
that.
I can go back and look, but I think it was around 5%. We've been doing 5%, and this year, because of the chemicals and the electricity increases, I think that pushed it a little higher.
Okay.
Either 4 or 5%. I can get you the exact
That-
number.
It sounds familiar. I was trying to remember, but, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the cost of sewer study presentation? Okay, we're gonna, Counselor Sheffield?
All right, so this is going to be, we're just voting on a 3-year, right? Nothing further
Right.
down. Okay, just for the
The
3.
next 3
Okay,
years.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, then that concludes this. We'll move on to the sewer rate ordinance. We're not gonna need Mark to stay on for that, right? We're not gonna need him?
Well, it's the same topic.
Well, it
That's the
is.
way it reads.
So we had the presentation, that takes us to the sewer rate ordinance, which implements what we've just heard about the 3-year rate case. So is there any further discussion on that? Okay, I'll take a motion to move that to the mayor and council meeting of December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to economic development. Sierra? So, minor facade grant for Pizzarama. So Danny, that was unanimous.
I
Oh,
get the vote.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As Mayor said, I'm here to present a minor facade improvement grant for Pizzarama. So just from some notes from our Economic Development Commission, I would just say, I wasn't able to be joined by the business owner Irene tonight because she's actually at Pizzarama doing her dinner rush. And our EDC commissioners had some other obligations, so it would just be me tonight. But the EDC met on November 13th, and we found that the Pizzarama minor facade improvement application for new business signs on the front and side of the building located at 344 Mitchell Street. Both signs are visible for the from the street. Overall, the commission agrees the application is eligible for reimbursement and aligns with our program goals. The commission discussed the timeline of this application submission. Some required documents were received after the 6-month window. The applicant received the building permit and building and zoning certificate for new signs on March 25th. From that date, the application submission deadline was September 25th. Some brief background about this, Commissioner Fonville met with the business owner in July, introduced her to me shortly thereafter, and I've been working with this business owner since then to submit all the documentation for this application. The final submission requirement was the payment of a delinquent tax bill. Since this was outside of the control of the applicant, the commission kind of waived the 6-month deadline submission that we have and thought that this application should come before you. The applicant did request a reimbursement for the $2,500, but based off of the eligible expenses minus the permit fees, we are recommending a reimbursement of $2,227.34. Within your packets, you will see our submission requirements. You will also see that timeline of kind of when all this stuff happened in the meetings that I've had with the business owner. Within there, you have the minor facade improvement application. This is the new format that you guys will start to receive because the application is now online for everyone. You have before pick images. It was formerly Pizza Today, now Pizzarama. Have the after images, as well as an invoice from Critical Signs for the work performed.
Okay, I open the floor for discussion. Deputy Mayor Depot?
Thank you, Mayor. Previously, I believe there was an application for the facade improvement program that was requesting reimbursement for a sign that did not face the street but was visible from the street, and I believe they were denied.
So in our previous, so we updated our language to our
That was gonna be
policy
my
and
question.
programs. So now that is kind of clear, like anything that is visible from the public street is eligible under.
Okay,
minor facade.
so now it doesn't have to be on the street-facing side of their building, as long as you can see it from the street.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So I noticed that part of the acquisition here, that they're removing a non-lit sign to a 2x12 non-lit. So both of their signs, because I see the after picture is not at nighttime. So both of these are lit at night?
Yes.
Both of them? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Sheffield?
Sierra, who owns the entire building complex? Is Pizzarama owning that?
No,
Yeah,
they are a
that's-
tenant.
Okay, they're the tenant, so,
It's,
how does that relate to the building owners as far as putting that facade on the front of that building that, again, they don't own the building, they're the tenant, so how is that, do they have to get that permission from the owner to put that facade up?
yes.
Okay. Now, you
And she
met-
did receive written permission, and she shared that with the commission as well.
Okay. And my next question would be, the tax implications. That would be the owner of the building, correct? Or-
Correct.
Okay, so are they, the owners of the whole complex, are they taking care of that tax thing?
Yes, they have taken care of that.
Okay, so we're able to have the tenant make the adjustments without dealing with the tax implications of,
Well, technically, they waited, so, all their submission, all their work was in before their 6 months time frame. But we had an extra month where we were working with the property owner to make sure that that payment was, made, or some type of arrangement was made.
okay. Now, if, God forbid, I guess, if it doesn't get paid, how does that reflect on, I guess, the tenant? I guess it'll just be the owner that would have to take care of the problem, and hopefully the tenant wouldn't have to suffer any implications if the taxes weren't paid or anything like that.
I don't think I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess it would have nothing to do with the putting up the signage on technically their property, I guess, but, and obviously the tenant's flipping the bill for it. How does that, and that's the other thing that's kind of strange, is that they don't own the building, but yet they're paying for a facade for a property they don't own. I'm trying to figure out why that, you know,
Well, there are other small businesses that have done this, that are renting or leasing from the owner, and they've done the same thing.
okay.
The tax implications, rather, are to the owner of the building, not to the owner of the business.
Okay.
So the Economic Development Commission evaluated that, and they didn't want to penalize the business owner because of the tax implications associated with the building owner, property owner.
Now, if they sell the business, the business owners, let's say they don't want to do their business anymore, would that have any implications on them?
You're talking about Pizzarama?
Right.
What do you mean if they sell?
If
the
they
business?
sold, yeah, exactly. If they sold their business itself, though they don't own the complex, how does that reflect?
They don't, if they were selling, they would be selling the business, and somebody else would have to still go into a lease with the building owner.
Okay, all right. So that, again, they're just strictly renters and no,
Correct.
okay, okay.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
Can I just ask you a clarifying question? The tenant did not owe taxes.
Correct.
The building owner owned taxes, and it took until October 29th for them, the building owner, to pay the taxes. And that's why we allowed the application to basically be revived, because the tenant had to wait for the building owner to pay their taxes. But the taxes are already paid.
The taxes.
We're not still waiting for them to pay the taxes.
No,
The building owner is up to date on taxes. Okay, just making sure.
So the taxes are not an issue.
And the sign is already up,
The-
as we
the
see in the
sign is up.
pictures. We're not waiting for the install. It's all done.
Everything is already complete.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Sierra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra.
Okay, Parks and Rec, Mary? Okay, so the first one is the Zabriskie House painting. So do we have any paper, is there paper we were gonna pass out or no?
It was emailed.
Oh, that's right, well, we emailed. Okay, then Mary, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I have a few of these. So the first one is the Zabursky House. So so it was approved for ARPA funding to get the Zabursky House repainted and get all the woodworking, outside woodworking to composite, so that way it withstands the weather down there. We had our RFPs were due on the 22nd of October, but we did some vetting of some of the 3 bids that we got in to make sure that they actually followed the scope of work. The low bid company that we talked to about, was it 2 weeks ago, Ron? Wasn't replacing all the outside woodwork, which was talked about at the walkthrough that we held prior to the bid going, having to be returned. So we went to the second company that, I guess he fell in the middle. He wasn't the high, he wasn't the low, he was the middle guy. We met with them on Friday to make sure that they following the scope of work. And they are doing all the outside woodworking into composite, and they are going to, I guess the word is chemically peel all the paint off, so it's gonna go right down to the stucco, so that way we're not patching, we're actually painting the entire building once we're done. So, we'd like to come today to our recommendation is to go with Lead Construction out of Milford, Connecticut, to do the work at the Zabursky House with a start date, he says on this thing, January 1, with a completion date of May 15.
So just from a timing standpoint, we wanted to bring this to you. We are still in the vetting process with reaching out for references and making sure for the referrals and that type of stuff. We started that process, but based on the scope in those meetings like Mary did talk about, we just wanted you to hear it tonight. So that way, hopefully by next Monday, we will be finalized with all of our vetting and be ready for it for approval. So it is an ARPA project as stated. One of the things that was on your desk when you came in was an updated ARPA project list. And that's for all the known projects at this point, where we updated the Z House for going from low bid, which was originally in there, now to the middle bid for the next couple of resolutions that Mary will be discussing. And then we also pulled out the park restroom. I'm just kind of give you a very high level just on this, why we're in it. We did not receive bids for that. We had 2 vendors go through the walkthrough. So we just kind of pulled that out for now, just based on the changes in this funding. And then the other one that we pulled out, but we're still waiting for it, is the siding and the roofing of the pavilions and the restrooms at Washington Park. That bid ends on December 3rd. So we just kind of wanted to update this list for the known, and as you can see, we are now 11,000 over our ARPA funds. But so we just wanted to show you this list as of our known factors today. But back to the original with Lee Construction, that was the point, was to bring it to you today to kind of show you tell you where we're at with it, and that we're just in the final stretches of doing that reference checking.
And the intent is to get you to move this to the mayor and council on the 2nd, and then we will have the reference checks done by then, and you'll be able to review the information that's sent to you via email. So, all right, we'll open this up for discussion. Deputy Mayor Depot.
So the original quote, which obviously we got a long time ago, for the Z House repairs was $175,000 we had for an estimate. I do think that this is a project that we should spend ARPA funds on, and it's a project that needs to be done. However, I have a problem with the fact that we currently need $500,000 of repairs on that house. We have been talking on this council about an asset maintenance plan. I have not seen one. There has not been, in my opinion, consistent asset maintenance on this house in particular. And I think if we're going to spend this money on it, I think we need a solid asset management plan so that this doesn't happen again. I constantly get complaints about the status of this house, the condition of this house. It is very hard to maintain because it is on the water, and I understand that. However, it has gone through long periods of disrepair over and over again, and it's, as a person who does solicit complaints, to have this house complained about over and over and over again, and then to come to council and ask where our asset management plan is, or what we're, doing to prevent this kind of huge repairs needed, is frustrating. So 100%, I want this repair done, and we do need to do it. But I think that we need to analyze how we're maintaining some of our assets in the city, because I don't think if we were doing our best that we would have to spend $500,000 this year to repair this house.
I'd like to address that. This was in my budget in 2021, 2022, and it was pulled because we got ARPA funding. We got notification that we were gonna have ARPA funding to do projects in the city. So this was a project that was budgeted for and looked at in 2021, 2022. It was just repainted in 2016. Yes, the nature of where the environment is where it is. It was pulled. I have patiently waited for the funding to be allocated so we could move forward with the project. The $175,000 was a quote that was given to us in September of 2021. So, and as the ARPA funding and discussions have taken place, we've tried to make that adjustment. And yes, the building has deteriorated more, but we weren't willing to spend taxpayer dollars for Band-Aids. We wanted to get it done properly. So that is why we are where we are right now. The building is, and that's why we're going to composite. The composite, we're not going back to pine or any kind of wood outside. So that way it won't deteriorate to the degree that it is now. And hopefully have it painted properly, because last time when they did have maintenance on this building, it took 3 years to get it done based on the company that we hired at that time. So now that's why we're vetting some companies to get in here that are gonna do the work properly.
Thank you.
So, a couple things. We do have an asset management plan now. I can get Mary to brief you. When we talk about the outbrief of the beach season in December, I can get Mary to talk to you about the asset management plan as well. We do now have one. It's been a while getting there, but we do now have it. The Z House, one of the reasons this is as expensive as it is I don't want to have to deal with what we're dealing with now. Because you had wood, the wood, we can go back and we can point fingers at what contractor didn't do what they were supposed to do, or why it took so long, and those kind of things. What I'm trying to do is take a long-term approach, and if we go with composite material, in theory, we shouldn't have any more deterioration of the wood or the fixtures, those kind of things. If you look at the house, you can see large pieces of paint have come off. That's a result of delamination, which is a result of poor surface prep and or the incorrect paint use. We didn't find that out till after it's already done, and a few years later. That's one of the things that we focused on in this, and that's another thing that's driving the price up, because that was the second addendum, was how are they gonna remove it, remove the paint down to stucco so that, and then prep the surface and then paint the surface. So, this will be fresh. It should last another, I'd say 10 to 15 years before we have to evaluate it. There are, in the asset management plan, there are routine visual inspections that are conducted on our assets. And that will give us the visual inspections. And then based on the visual inspections, then we can put it in the budget. Or we can go after grants or whatever we need, depending on the scope and size of the project. Ron, do you want to add to that?
I just want to add, we've been focused on the Z House. Also, part of the scope of this work is the garage at the Z House as well. So that is also being, as part of this project. Just wanted to let the council know.
All right. Okay. Anyone, do you have anything else? Deputy Mayor Depot, you have the floor.
So in our packets, it does say on the front page that we'll get additional information. I don't have backup info for the Z House painting in my packet. Not that, I mean, I think we're still vetting,
Well, it says tentative,
I don't
so
have
on
an
the
email
agenda, it
from
says
today.
tentative material provided Monday. Did you send an email to these guys?
I thought I did. Thought it went through.
Okay, if not, you'll get the email tomorrow.
Well, my question is, I assume the email was going to be the vendor information, which we haven't finished vetting anyways, correct?
So what was part of that packet was the bid tabulation form, the bidder's submission, their bid form, along with their references that they submitted. I believe was what we had put aside for the packet, like we have done historically.
I mean,
And we did not talk to the second vendor until we started at 2:00 on Friday afternoon. So the decision wasn't made until this morning because Ron and I had to sit and talk about the differences and which way to go, the direction to go in this. And so we didn't want to give you a whole packet of information here because you wouldn't have time to look at it, knowing that we're going to get it to you so that you'll have a week now to look at it before Monday.
right. So, the vetting, when do we expect that to be done?
I'm hoping within the next couple of days. We've already started it, but we do want to follow up with a couple of more. Obviously, like a resume, for lack of a better, you try to find references that are not in their packet, in their submission, just because you want to try to go off the path and maybe find something that maybe wasn't the best job and then what happened. Whereas most people, when they submit a project list, it's going to be their better jobs that you know
Right.
you're going to get the good reference for. So we started the references that they've given to us, and we're waiting to hear back from, I know one that I'm still waiting to hear back from, and then another one that are kind of on their list, but not directly. And then we're going to see if we can't do a couple more. So I would say within the next couple of days, we should be done with the vetting.
But the information you should have just gotten is the information Ron was just talking about, the tabulation sheet and the bid, right? So what you normally get. So you should see that. So you'll have time for that. That'll give us time to make the call. Now, if we're not ready to bring this to you, I'm gonna ask that you let me put this on the agenda for the second. But if we're not ready to bring it to you, meaning we haven't fully vetted them, I'm not bringing it to you.
Okay, and, so the job is expected to start in January, and it's gonna take them till May, middle of May to complete, is that?
Well, yeah, they're gonna do this in phases, so they're gonna replace the wood. So you can work on the wood outside anytime, but you can't do the paint. They could probably do the removal of the paint, but, we had lengthy discussions on temperature humidity requirements for, the proper, surface prep and then the laying of the paint so that the paint would properly adhere. And you need certain temperatures for that, so we'll probably do that later in the spring. But they know that I want this completed, what day do we give them?
May 15th.
May 15th, because we tend to open on Memorial Day weekend.
And how is this going to affect your, I know we rent that building out. Is this going to affect your budget because you won't be able to rent it during those months? I know that some of them are winter and you probably don't rent it as much, but,
We did have that conversation with this contractor when we met with them on Tuesday, and they've indicated that they've worked in office buildings in different structures that actually have offices in and people aren't displaced, so he'd work with us on our schedule.
Okay.
So we know what our schedule is. We had talked about whether I should shut it down for the time frame, but he was understanding that it's a used space, and he would work with us on that. They most likely didn't sound like they'd be there on weekends, which is when it's heavily
Right.
used. So it would, work it, and then we can let people know as they rent that, hey, you might see construction material outside the back door or whatever, but we would work with them on that. But we did ask that question.
oh, awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
But understanding that, if we get into this and we find that the construction is gonna be disruptive to the peaceable enjoyment of the Z House, if you will, then we'll have to pull it off.
And the safety of the people renting it would be the
Right.
biggest, that if
Absolutely.
we have railings down or stuff like that.
Right. Counselor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So on this cost, $497,000, is that including a contingency that they gave us?
No, the 497 is the base bid. I mean, that's the base with the alternate, with the chemical stripping, and then we did request a 10% contingency just in case there are some unknowns.
Okay, so the 10% is not in here, or it is?
they don't have it, that's right. Sorry, there's a 10% contingency, so it brings the price up to 546,700 with the contingency.
So just like one of the other resolutions that we did, this is gonna be ARPA funds and capital.
If all goes well, it'll just be ARPA funds. But if there is the unforeseens, then that's where the contingency will come in.
Right.
Right, they rip it up and there's termites running all through and they gotta do more.
But the
Cassadine that.
but the resolution is gonna have ARPA funds, which is for the base, and then the contingency will be out of capital.
Okay, so presently for this company that's looking to do it, do we have, a warranty on this? I'm sure like, composite decking is gonna last longer. Is there a warranty on it though?
We can follow up with that. I don't know that we talk, I mean, it'll obviously be the paint manufacturer's warranty. Again, that was, as the mayor talked about, we do have that deadline date of the May 15th where we want to be complete. However, the contractor knows that we would, if the weather isn't cooperating during that time, we don't want them to meet that May 15th deadline and not meet the manufacturer's specification. So with all of that, we should have something there, but I can reach out and follow up on that for you and have an answer for you next week.
Thank you. And, I mean, just to piggyback off what's said, I mean, with the complaints, although I think you had said before, Mary, that we, like, the Zabierski house gets booked up through the entire year, you usually don't have any blocks wide open. So I'm thinking, on a positive note, that if we have that booking, then imagine what it would be when it's composite and prettier and painted and so forth and so on. So I'm hoping for the best. Now, with that, I'm not even sure if this is a great question to ask, but I'm going to ask it. So down the road, in our budget, are we looking that because of this spent, would that affect that an increase in budget needed for maintenance? Or I would think, I'm hoping maybe lower or the same. Are we looking at for an increase in any way in our asset maintenance at all? I mean, it's
So are you
kind of hard
looking-
to answer that.
So are you looking or we would look at raising the fees to rent?
Yes.
It's something that's looked at yearly. We don't normally take into account, we take more into account to the daily use, like we're gonna get in there, we're shutting it down for 2 weeks in January to paint the inside. We've changed all the lights out to LEDs, but those are minor things. If that's something that we would look at, if it's something that we wanna return on our value. The Zaberski House is very low rent. And it's something that the Beach and Parks Committee would look at and then bring a recommendation here based on information I share with them at their meetings.
So basically, presently, we're not looking at to increase it due to this
No.
due maintenance at all. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Deputy Mayor Depot?
Just a thought, once we do get this completed, have we thought about maybe doing like a ribbon cutting? I think would be really cool.
Yes.
Get some really good photos of it.
Yep.
We can do something.
Because then we
Yep.
could have, we don't get to interact with a lot of of the committees very often, but it might be kind of fun if we could get the council and the Beach and Parks Committee to be there.
Yep. We have internally, we've discussed how to go about doing it. Well, obviously, we haven't publicly put that out yet because we haven't even.
Got to vote on it.
Absolutely. Counselor Sheffield?
I like the idea, but I'm uncomfortable with the price tag, since I know there's other things we have to address that I think are more pertinent in the city. And, you know, yeah, 175,000 to 497 is certainly uncomfortable to where, you know, I'm not sold on that yet. I'm
Well,
trying
it's
to.
not a straight 175 to 497. The scope changed.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's
So
why,
175 might have just been painting,
yeah.
whereas now we're stripping, painting, replacing wood. So it's not apples for apples.
Well, I know, but just the fact that there's other things in the city that we certainly have to, I think, more pertinent at the moment, so I'm just uncomfortable at the moment, so.
The issue with the Z House is the Z House is down at Eastern Point Beach. It is the gym that's down there. I am committed to getting this fixed so that we can have a long-term, I'm not gonna go back into what happened the last time it was done, but some of the effects are because of the way it was done before. We have taken those lessons learned, and we're going to learn from them. That's one of the reasons we're looking at composite, so that we don't have to worry about rotting wood. And we are looking to move forward. I'm not looking in the rearview mirror. So that's what we're trying to do. Anything else? Deputy Mayor Depot.
Just to, off of what Counselor Sheffield is saying, I agree it's a big sticker, but if you've been down to the Z House, not only just because it sits as kind of like a monument down there, but in terms of safety, things need to be repaired. Right now, there's some splintered wood, there are pieces, doors that don't shut properly. So to me, a big reason to get this done is also safety. We have so many people down there in the summer, and if the house is not rented, people are on the porch of it, people are going around up and down the ramp. We have nonprofits that use the space for fundraising events. I do think it's important to get it up to the quality standard that this would do, and having the composite so that we're not worried about splinters because, you know, someone cut a chunk of the wood off or kicked the door in, or, you know, any of those things, which again, because it's down on the water, it does tend to get in disrepair really quickly and the wood gets damaged. So I do think on top of the looks of it and the presentation and it being at the beach, those are all important too, but to me, a big part of the importance of getting this fixed is safety. Just from what I've seen myself, being down at the beach with people, you know, kind of kids jungle gym on the railings and, you know, so I think, I just want to add that to the reasons to get it fixed as well, because it's not just about looks, it's about safety too.
Okay, Ron?
And I don't disagree with the price, but one other thing to keep in mind, this is ARPA funding. We are very fastly approaching that December 31st where we have to have these funds obligated. And in order to even rebid this project with a different scope, we would never get there from here, or even try to get another project online. We have one more project that's that hasn't come in yet for bids, meaning the roofs and the siding, and we're not even guaranteed bids for that at this point. So just to keep it in mind, I'm not disagreeing, but if we don't have these funds obligated, we lose them.
Okay,
Yeah,
Counselor
and-
Sheffield?
and Ron, I absolutely agree, but and we understand the ARPA situation where it's not coming out of the taxpayer, but I think we have, I think, more pressing things that we need to address with the ARPA money, I believe, than the Z House at this point. And again, I'm for getting it done, the beautification, the upgrade. Certainly, I fought that for the Mother Bailey House, and obviously that didn't work out too well. So, I want this to certainly be a success, but the same token, I know we have some other things in the city that need to be addressed also that hopefully, we'll have the money to take care of. So that's all. Thank you.
Councilor Piazza?
Just wanted to ask, does Groton Parks and Rec still, during the summer, do they go down there when they go to the beach? They still hang out there on the lawn like they usually do?
Our
The
summer
kids?
program does, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Talley?
Yeah, I just wanted to go off of that too. As a parent of a child who's in that summer program, I really would like to see that get done, like Deputy Mayor Depot said, just as a safety standpoint too. I think it's important.
I will add, I have also got my letter of appropriateness from the Eastern Point Historic District. I've gone to their meetings, so we're all set, and they're all approved of us going to the composite piece.
Okay, is there anything else? I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council of December 2nd.
So moved.
2024, sorry.
My apologies, sorry. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, swing set?
Okay, so one of the other ARPA listing pieces of equipment was swing sets. There are swings for at the beach and at Washington Park. I went on the state bid packet. I reached out to, there was 4 companies. I reached out to M.E. O'Brien and Sons. They gave me swing quotes for just the beach only, ground covering, installation. They didn't actually give us their quote based on their state bid information. It was on another, I can't say the word.
Consortium.
Consortium, thank you. That's been used for, by many of the different playground companies. So with that being, having gotten that, I did go out to another company and they, with New England Recreation Group, and they gave us quotes. So when I say the swing sets at the beach, I'm talking like the swings and the bench swings. They've given us quotes on updating those. The swing set will be a 3-bay swing set with comparable, the same colors as the existing playscape because it's the same company that put that playscape in. And we'll have 2 bays of belt seats, 2 bays of toddler seats, and then 1 adaptive swing with a toddler. So we'll have added components to our playground at the beach. So that, and then updated, I call them bench swings, I don't know what you all call them. And then it also encompasses putting rubber mats underneath so we don't get those gullies underneath the swings and underneath the bench seats. At the park, they're gonna do, we have a large one up there now, but they don't make the seats in the swings for them because it's too high by standard. So we're gonna take that out, same thing, we're gonna have a 3-bay swing up there with, same thing, 2 belts, 2 toddlers, and then the adaptive component to it. And so they gave us a more in-depth, more detailed quote. They used the same consortium. So I would like to make a recommendation that we go with New England Recreation Group to get the swing sets. They'll install, they'll help us rip out the old, dispose of the old, and now everything will match down the beach, and up at the park we'll do the beige and the beige and green, I think is what we have in the equipment up there.
And this will give us an opportunity to work on some landscaping down at the beach and up at the park so that, like I said, get rid of the gullies, we'll clean it up, and we'll modernize with the equipment and with the landscaping. So with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Deputy Mayor Depot.
What was my question? When do we expect the swing project to be started and completed?
I believe as soon as we have the money committed, they'll start ordering the parts, the equipment, and we'll have it installed as soon as there's no frost. So late March, maybe early April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So when you have the adaptive one, do we have like mats like you say at other beaches where somebody who would need a mat to get there, do we have those for that person besides underneath the swing?
We could, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm just thinking about like, okay, it's nice to have the swing, but how do they actually get
Right.
there?
Yeah, so the way it's gonna set up, do you know where the big slide is at the park?
Yeah.
At the beach, so there, we're gonna take out the toddler one, and then it's gonna run right in front of there, so we'll be able to come off, depending on what bay it is, off the sidewalks that exist and with the matting. to
Yeah,
get
that
them
would be
to-
great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Talley?
Can we please make sure they don't squeak?
I'll
I'm
do my
sure.
best.
I'm sure you're so tired of hearing
Well, with the,
how
with the
they
new,
squeak so bad.
with the new hardware,
Yeah,
we shouldn't have any issues.
good.
But these are old, they're rusty, and, yep, they are sometimes vocal. So, any other questions or comments? And I'll take a motion to move this to Mayor and Council of December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, Washington Park exercise equipment.
Okay, so this again, so we have existing up there, we have exercise equipment that was put in place in 2009. Again, I went to the state bid, M.A. O'Brien, I did a spreadsheet, because they don't offer as many of the components that we currently have up there. So they just gave me a listing of what they had. I kind of tried to figure it out based on what we currently have, because it does get used. It was very popular during COVID, our equipment up there, but because of the use, it's been there since 2009, so it's deteriorating. Again, M.A. O'Brien gave us a list, we went through what they had, they didn't include shipping, and they didn't include an installation cost, but New England Recreation Group is the company that currently who we bought the equipment from in 2009. And so they went back and gave us updated quotes on what to replace what we have. And then we looked to add some other components to it. So the spreadsheet has a highlight of yellow, that's the 2 new pieces that we would add to the existing. Again, they would install, they would help, it includes their shipping and their price, they would install it, they would have a company here to install it, and they would help us with the removal of the old. We installed the one that we currently have back in '09, but it did pull the guys away from their other work at that time, so we went for the installation. Plus, if they're doing the swing sets, it might be a nice collaboration they can do. They can install exercise equipment and then go and, while that's waiting to dry, they can go install a swing and then still be on site, and it could, nice collaboration of working together to get those pieces in place.
Okay, I'll open the floor for discussion. Any questions or comments, Counselor Sheffield?
Okay, so our original, we budgeted for 25,000, and now we're at about 108. Were we anticipating additional cost, I guess, with the equipment, or was that the contractors?
Initially, when we looked at this, we were gonna replace just the broken pieces.
Okay,
But then as we started looking at, some of the pieces have changed in regards to how some of it's weight bearing, so you sit on the seat and you're pulling your weight up to, and so some of the components have changed, so we figured if we're going to, instead of having mixed match pieces, we'd get it all, replace everything matched together. So that's why there's an increase in the fee, in the pricing, and then we've added components.
now as far as weather, having to deal with these pieces, it's gonna be outdoor, obviously, what type of?
So it's designed just like your playground equipment, so just
Okay.
like the playground, a jungle, I call them jungle gyms, I'm old school, there I go. Old playground equipment, what the kids play on, it's made that type of,
So it's
outside
it'll
equipment.
last for years,
Yep.
I get, okay,
Yep.
okay.
But this is also where your asset management plan comes in, so that the equipment will be inspected. We can identify wear and tear and any early failures, and then do preventive maintenance on the equipment before it goes to failure. Any other, Counselor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So, have we ever done like a study or a survey of any sort out to the citizens, or a study to see how, and you said it is used, you said during COVID, but now we're well past that, how often it actually used? I mean, I've used it way back in the past, but I haven't been there recently.
We were monitoring it a little bit more closely even after COVID, but one of the other things that's come about, so that with the Youth Advisory Committee, they've done a recent survey, and their recent survey talked about fitness, kids wanting to learn fitness. So we've already looked at once we get this in place, it would be a program we could do for our youth, especially that age group of that 6th, 7th, 8th grade group that we kind of lose track of. And it came out as their number 2 activity that they'd want. You know, you got dances and all that music stuff, but then that was the next component. So it kind of falls into the nature of once we get it there, we could actually get the kids involved, have somebody come out and teach them how to use it all, do a program with it. I mean, there is instructions on all the equipment to teach them how to use it. So it's active when, like, so, you know, families are up there with their kids. You'll see a kid or 2 on it, but not as active as it was during COVID. So, but we have monitored it a little bit. Hopefully we can continue to do that once we get this in place. Now that I have extra staff to help me with that now that I have a coordinator position filled, so we get them to monitor that too.
I just want to ask, that's good as far as 6th, 7th, 8th grades, because our kids really need to be out in the sun and get on their legs because of vitamin D loss. But with that said, I think that's great to touch base on that, to have other people come in, especially our sports people that we support. I was also wondering too, with that said, because when I go past there a lot, you know, I look at, have we ever planned to have some type of walking path? You know, when I look at Fort Griswold also, I forget where it is, where they actually you have markings to tell you, okay, you've walked this far, you've walked this far, you've walked this far. Have we ever had that where people can actually do a walking path and say, oh, I walked the Washington Park Trail, blah, 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 and and they know how far they've actually walked?
Currently, no. There might have been something like that when I first got here, but we can add that. I mean, that's not hard. We have a map for the beach that we have different loops for the beach that people can walk. So definitely could be something that could be implemented and actually use the exercise equipment as part of the component too.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea, because a lot of people tell me how they like to walk around there, but they never know how far they walked, and they have their, you know, of course, everybody has their little gidgy gadgets now, but,
Sure.
I mean, it just doesn't, you know, take in because there are some slopes, and that really adds to your calories, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
One thing I did want to say is I see you out on the road a lot. When I'm out my bus, I see you out on the road, and I see you doing a lot, and you're at a lot of projects, and I just want to thank you for all the time that you put into all this, and because I see you out and about at all these projects, and then all the stuff that you do in Inside House, too, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Councilor Patterson?
So the equipment that's gonna be replaced, are they replacing all the equipment in the exact same spaces, or will the equipment be spread out throughout the park?
Well, we talked about, because so the equipment is in place based on the company and their layout plan. They're the ones that we worked with when we did the original plan. They do it more of a circuit training, so they want it a little more closer together, as opposed to, we replaced, way back when we had the old wooden stuff where you would like lay on your back with your feet under a wooden hook and you do sit-ups, and it all rotted and deteriorated, and one of the complaints was it was too far apart. So when we did do this in '09, we worked with the company to develop how it's enough that you can either walk briskly or take a quick little jog to get to component. So we worked with the company to lay it out the way it is currently, and we would do that again.
Okay, anything else? Councilor Talley? Did you have?
No, I didn't.
Okay, sorry. Councilor Sheffield?
Do we have the invoices from New England Recreation? I saw this, what's going on? Okay, for the beach swings, is there something for the outdoor equipment? Is that on here as well?
Outdoor equipment.
That same one?
Yeah, that one, and then the swings was different.
Yeah, it's a couple pages after that.
Okay, hold on.
Right after where it says MHEC, right after that.
Okay. Maybe I didn't get that page, possibly. Okay. It's okay. I'm
You were
good.
given
Yeah.
a full packet,
Okay. That's fine, yeah.
but it's one of the reasons that we went with tablets, so that everything could be sent to everybody electronically,
Yeah.
and we could use their tablets. Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, any other questions or comments? And I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council on December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, memorial bench request. So we have 3 there for different locations.
So yes, the first 2 are for down at Griswold Point, which is the backs, down by where their construction's going on right now. So these were, they were, RB Kent is, Joan, is it Joan? I think it's Joan.
It is,
Okay,
it's Joan
so I'm
Kinnicky.
like, I only have an initial, and then RB Kent. The RB Kent one was a request from the Rotary, and Jones was a request from Leanne Aubry for down by Griswold Point, which we do have space for 2 more benches once the construction is completed on Shore Avenue. So we'll get those working. Start working with them to get theirs made and get their plaques done. And then the last one is for Barbara Frucht, and that was for placement of a bench in front of this building for her in her honor, and that's being facilitated by some of the staff at the police department.
Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot.
I just want to comment, I don't know RB Kent, but I have known the other 2, just from business events or city events, and I think it's a really cool idea to put a bench by the municipal building for Barbara, and so whoever thought of that, especially because we don't have space in a lot of other
Right.
places, so it's a good alternative, I think. And for Joan to put one by Griswold Point, I think, she lived in the city for quite a while, and obviously Leanne Aubry was a town councilor for a long time, which we are in the town as well. So, they contributed a lot to our community. And so I just want to say, I think these are great proposals, and I'm glad, I know I have a memorial bench, and it means a lot to have a place to go sit every once in a while. So I'm glad that they applied to do that, and I will definitely promote pushing these forward.
And Barbara Frucht was city clerk for I forget how many years, for a long
And
time.
then she was treasurer also.
Was that?
She was your treasurer. She was the treasurer.
She was a treasurer,
Yep.
but she was also
Yeah, and city
city
clerk.
clerk. Okay, I'll take a motion to move these 3 requests to the mayor and council of December 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Take a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. We are adjourned. And we are going to go, let me get to my, are you ready for me to move on? Okay?
Recording stopped.
Okay, so we have Ted on the thing. He's gonna have to go off and then come back on because he's not part of the first executive session. Okay? Ted, Ted's gone. Thank you, Ted. Okay, thank you. Let me know when you're ready. Well, I gotta open up the meeting. Ready? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Groton Special Mayor and Council Meeting for Monday, November 25th, 2024. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Debo, Councilor Patterson, Councilor Piazza, Councilor Artelli, and Councilor Sheffield are present.
Okay. We have section on executive session. I'll take a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-206 Bravo for pending litigation for the police department to include mayor and council, Chief Burton, and Chris Haas.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Also.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you're right, we'll need Ron Uhas as well. So,
So moved.
Second.
okay, motion and second. You're right, I do need you, I don't normally, but I do in this case. There will be action that comes out of this executive session.
You have to take a vote.
So, what's that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. We are in executive session.
ratify a settlement agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the same on behalf of the city of Groton. I so move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. We discussed this in executive session. Is there any further discussion?
Do we have to name the officer?
No.
Okay.
Do we need to move and vote to add
Well,
this to the agenda?
this is the reason that I have possible action out of executive session, is this, because we're in a special meeting, so you can't vote to add.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
So I wrestled with this. I went to John Burt. I went to my city clerk first, and then we talked about it, and that's our get out of jail free
Oh,
card.
wait a minute. That's right, the resolution says the officer's name, but the therefore be it resolved does not. Is that an inconsistency?
No.
Okay, never seen that before, okay.
Well, okay. We have had that before, but
I mean, maybe I
It's-
wasn't on
it's-
council at the time, but I
Okay,
know
well,
previously,
it's-
we've always had it consistent, so that was my thinking.
second? We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. So that motion carries. I now, do we want to bring Ted in on this one? Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-206 Alpha, personnel of fire department to include mayor and council, Chief Tompkins, and Andrew what? Padama.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We are in executive session. And there will be no action coming out of this executive session.
Recording stopped.